The moment that changed everything wasn't loud or dramatic. It was a Tuesday evening, sitting alone in my car, realizing I'd spent 40 minutes replaying a conversation that had lasted less than 30 seconds, and somehow it felt completely normal to me. Before we begin, please support MindShift Stories by subscribing, liking the video, and leaving a comment. Your support helps us continue sharing meaningful stories with the world. For most of my adult life, overthinking felt like intelligence in disguise. I believed that if I analyzed everything deeply enough, every word, every pause, every expression, I could avoid mistakes, embarrassment, or regret. I told myself I was just being careful, responsible, thoughtful. But what I didn't realize back then was how quietly exhausting that mindset was becoming. My days followed a predictable rhythm. Wake up, check my phone, mentally rehearse the day ahead before my feet even touched the floor. On the drive to work, I'd replay yesterday, things I said, things I almost said, moments that probably meant nothing, but somehow felt important enough to dissect again. At work, I did my job well. No complaints there. But internally, my mind never sat still. If a coworker replied with a short email, I wondered what I'd done wrong. If my boss paused before answering a question, I assumed disappointment. If a friend didn't text back right away, I filled in the silence with stories I'd invented myself. I remember thinking, if I can just understand everything, I'll finally feel calm. That calm never came. Instead, my thoughts became louder, more convincing. They spoke in my own voice, which made them harder to question. I trusted them because they felt logical, even when they weren't kind. The first crack in that belief came from something painfully small. One afternoon, after a long meeting, a colleague named Mark walked past my desk without saying hi. That was it. No comment, no reaction, just silence. But my mind grabbed onto it instantly. Did I offend him earlier? Did I say something wrong in the meeting? Did he notice a mistake I missed? By the time I got home, I had replayed every interaction we'd ever had. I'd rewritten conversations in my head, imagining better responses, smarter comments, less awkward versions of myself. I barely tasted dinner. My body was home, but my mind was still stuck in a hallway at work, watching someone walk past me. The next day, Mark stopped by my desk and casually said, "Hey, sorry I seemed off yesterday. I had a migraine and just needed to get out of there." That was it. No hidden meaning, no unspoken resentment, just a headache. I laughed it off in front of him, but inside something shifted. Not relief, something heavier. Embarrassment maybe, or disappointment in myself. I realized how much emotional energy I had spent on a story that wasn't real. Still, I didn't stop overthinking. Awareness didn't magically change behavior. If anything, it made me more aware of how often my mind did it. The real turning point came a few weeks later, in a place I didn't expect. I was waiting in line at a coffee shop, scrolling through my phone, half present as usual. The barista called my name but pronounced it wrong. It wasn't a big mistake, just one letter off. I corrected her politely, but the moment stuck with me. As I stepped aside, I noticed a man behind me smiling slightly. Not mocking, just observant. When our eyes met, he looked away, and just like that, my mind went to work. Was he laughing at me? Did I sound rude? Did I embarrass myself correcting her? I carried that thought to a small table by the window. I stirred my coffee without drinking it, watching people pass by outside, each one unknowingly starring in my internal commentary. I felt that familiar tightness in my chest, the one that came when my thoughts started piling on. Then something unexpected happened. The same man from the line walked over and asked if he could share the table. The shop was crowded and I nodded. We sat in silence for a moment before he spoke. "Hey, random question. Do you ever feel like your mind just won't shut up?" I remember blinking, unsure if I'd heard him right. "Yeah," I said slowly. "All the time." He nodded like that was all the confirmation he needed. I used to think that meant I was paying attention. Turns out, I was just punishing myself. That sentence landed harder than anything I'd been thinking all day. We talked for maybe 10 minutes, nothing deep on the surface. He mentioned therapy, mindfulness apps he never finished, how his brain loved to turn neutral moments into personal failures. When he stood up to leave, he smiled again. Not the amused smile I'd imagined earlier, but a tired, understanding one. "For what it's worth," he said, "I wasn't laughing at you earlier. I was thinking about how brave it is to correct people instead of shrinking." Then he walked out. I sat there long after my coffee went cold. That was the moment I realized something uncomfortable. Most of my overthinking wasn't about understanding others. It was about assuming judgment where there was none. I had been living as if everyone around me was constantly evaluating me, when in reality, they were usually just managing their own thoughts. That night, I paid closer attention to my inner dialogue. Not to fix it, just to listen. I noticed how quickly my mind jumped to conclusions, how often I filled silence with blame, how rarely I considered neutral explanations. My thoughts weren't facts, they were interpretations, habitual ones. Over the next few days, I tried something small but difficult. When a thought showed up, they're annoyed with me. I added a quiet question. What else could be true? At first, it felt fake, like lying to myself. But I wasn't trying to replace the thought, just loosen its grip. A friend canceled plans last minute. Old me would have spiraled. This time, I paused. Maybe they're tired. Maybe they're overwhelmed. Maybe it has nothing to do with me. The discomfort didn't disappear, but it softened. At work, I stopped rereading emails 10 times before sending them. Not because I was suddenly confident, but because I realized perfection was just another form of fear. The consequences weren't dramatic. No sudden peace, no constant calm. But something subtle changed. My mind got quieter. Not silent, just less demanding. I stopped treating every thought like an emergency. I learned that discomfort didn't always mean danger. Sometimes it just meant uncertainty. The biggest shift came when I understood this. Overthinking was my attempt to control outcomes I couldn't actually control. I believed that if I thought enough, worried enough, prepared enough, I could protect myself from discomfort. But life doesn't work that way. People misunderstand. Moments pass without closure. Silence exists without meaning. And most of the time, the stories we tell ourselves are harsher than reality. I didn't stop overthinking overnight. I still catch myself doing it. But now I see it for what it is. A habit, not a truth. A signal, not a command. The lesson wasn't to think positive or let go. It was simpler than that. I learned to stop assuming my thoughts were accurate just because they were loud. Now, when my mind starts racing, I don't fight it. I notice it. I breathe. I remind myself that I don't need to solve every feeling to survive it. And sometimes I think back to that quiet coffee shop, to a stranger who mirrored a part of myself I didn't want to see. It makes me wonder how many silent battles we pass by every day without noticing. Maybe overthinking isn't the flaw. Maybe it's just misplaced care. And maybe the real freedom comes when we stop believing everything we think.